Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Frank Zappa Shut Up and Play Your Guitar series. We are on the second album, which is Shut Up and Play Your Guitar Some More. So, if you watched the last episode, you know what the deal is here. If you haven't, let me give you a brief recap. Frank Zappa Shut Up and Play Your Guitar series is 3 albums that were released onto 2 compact discs. Alright, now, I have to mention this because the second album, Shut Up and Play Your Guitar Some More, is actually split. I'm not sure if you can see this, between the 2 discs. Side A is on disc 1, side B is on disc 2. Awesome in certain ways, sucks in other ways. Awesome in the sense that, I get to experience what it's like to actually have to go from disc A to or from side A to side B because I actually have to go through the disc switching. No big deal. But at the same time, it actually does alter the overall, I'm going to say, mechanics of the album. And the reason why I say this is when you're listening to it on CD and you go and you get into it, the album ends with one of my all-time favorite Zappa guitar riffs, licks, songs, whatnot. If you were listening to this on the vinyl, it's only side A that ends with it. So it really kind of plays out differently. Because it also makes a difference between how the first disc on this collection finishes out, and it finishes out omega huge strong, but it also allows at the same time for the second disc to start off a hell of a lot stronger than it would have started off if it was released as a 3 CD series. And let me get into this album, and I'm going to explain why. So, the album opens up with variations on the Carlos Santana Secret Chord Progression. This is a really good tune. This is a really fun tune. And when you're listening to it, if you're listening to it just as a separate album, it starts the album off great, really gets it up and rocking, really gets you moving. But it's not the track I would have used to open up the album myself. I wouldn't have planned it that way. I would have used probably one of the tracks off the second side instead. In the mix of the whole first disc, it runs nicely going right after Soup and Old Clothes, which would have been the last song on the first album. But here, Veros on the Carlos Santana Secret Chord variations on the Carlos Santana Secret Chord Progression. Super long name. We'll twist that one around on the tongue a little bit. Anyways, really good tune. I love it. It really does it's Zappa playing around. He heard Santana, said, "Hey, that sounds really cool. Let's play with that. Let's have fun with that." Zappa does that a lot. It's not because of rules with getting permissions and rights for releasing songs when you cover other artists' material. It makes it a little more complicated for Zappa to necessarily show his love for other bands. I've got some other albums, which I'll eventually get to, where there are actually covers or there are actual songs where he takes moments to pay homage to other musicians or other artists where he's digging on the music that they've released. And that's all that this is. This is a nod to Santana. Hey, how you doing? And once again, good way to start the album. Wouldn't have been my choice, but it's a good way to start the album. After that, we go into Gee, I Like Your Pants. This one just kind of hits the album, just kind of floats there. It doesn't do a whole lot. It's a solid tune, but it's kind of a filler tune. So Gee, I Like Your Pants it's a decent enough tune, it just kind of fills out the album. It's nothing spectacular. It's nothing to write home about to me. That's followed up by Canarsie, and Zappa really digs his jazz and his jazz motifs and his jazz variations, and using, especially a lot of, I know a lot of people refer to it kind of as acid jazz. Some would refer to it in other ways. I don't know the proper names for the type of jazz that would be on here, but it's very jazzy in the more traditional classic sense, where playing with stuff that doesn't necessarily work, odd time signatures, weird chord phrasings, stuff like that. If you are into interesting explorations, it is a really, really good tune. But if you want to listen to something more straightforward, less artistic, it's not going to be for you. And that goes into Ship Ahoy. Ship Ahoy is absolutely fantastic. It finishes off the entire first disc. It finishes off, the first side of the second album. And it's not that there is a ton going on in this song. It's not like it's something major or spectacular. But what is going on in it is totally mesmerizing. It's the guitar work. It's through the roof. It's absolutely phenomenal, and it should be mentioned that it is just, it's that this is really a minimalist kind of song musician wise, because it's got Zappa on guitar. That's it, lead guitar. That's there's no other guitars, just Zappa on guitar. Andre Lewis on keyboards, Roy Estrada on bass, and Terry Bozzio on drums. Now, Terry Bozzio, unfortunately, is not on this album half as much as I wish he was, because Terry Bozzio is like one of my biggest influences as a drummer. And it's because of Frank Zappa that I know Terry Bozzio as well as I do. And this is not the song to be showcasing Terry Bozzio either, really. But it's that simple of a song, simple 4-piece, and the guitar work that Zappa's laying down throughout this entire song is just awesome, with the tap backs he's got going, and the echo, and it's not like he's relying on this stuff either. The reverb, the echo, all the little tricks and that, they're in there to give a little extra effect, but it's him playing. Like this is one of those songs where where Steve Vai got his influences, and where Steve Vai learned how to play the way he does, or started the way he does. I mean, there are multiple times throughout this album and other albums where Frank Zappa calls Steve Vai the impossible musician, or the impossible guitarist, because of his ability to go beyond what Frank did. Frank would record something, say this is great, play it backwards, say, oh, this is cooler, and then Vai would learn it and play it. All right, so let's get on to the second half now. We've switched to the second disc, or we've flipped our album over to side B, and we open up with the Deathless Horsey. Whoa. I love when Zappa does mellower guitar pieces. And I don't want to say too mellow, because this isn't like, some light fluffy stuff. It's mellow as in it's a little bit slower, it's a little more downplayed, it's a little more delicate in its sounding, but it's not necessarily a lullaby. I mean, this would actually work as a lullaby in certain ways. It's that soft and pretty and delicate, but it's something you can enjoy just listening to. You can put on anywhere, and it's not going to offend anybody. It's not going to upset anybody, and it's not going to hurt any feelings, because sometimes if you put on heavy music that happens, but it's not so delicate or soft or whatnot that it'll actually put you to sleep, you know. And to be fair, if you think about lullabies, you know, like, you know, what is it, Rockabye Baby, right, you know, in a treetop, when the bell breaks, the cradle will fall, down will come baby, cradle and all, ring around the rosy, you know, like stuff like that. They're not friendly stuff. So, you know, the Deathless Horsey works perfect as, you know. And there is definitely something interestingly sad and spiritual about this song at the same time. I don't really know how to go better than that with that. I'm sorry. From there, we go into Shut Up and Play Your Guitar Some More. I really, really dig this one. Shut Up and Play Your Guitar Some More is really cool. Compared to the first one, compared to Shut Up and Play Your Guitar, which just kind of felt like it was a lot of wanking off. Shut Up and Play Your Guitar Some More, well, it is, you know, a little bit of musical wanking. It's not as bad. It's a little more enjoyable. It has a little more flow to it, you know. It has... It's not playing for the sake of playing it. It feels more like you're actually going from a point A to point B with a bit of a story in there. My take. And then we finished the album off with Pink Napkins. Now, in my last review for Shut Up and Play Your Guitar, I had mentioned I had a buddy that knew Frank Zappa through learning guitar. My buddy, one of my guitarists I played with in high school, phenomenal guitarist in his own right, he had a guitar mag that I think had transcripts in it for Pink Napkins, which is how he had heard of it, but I never had a copy of it at that time. I didn't realize that this even existed at that time. You know, I didn't know that I had to go look for Shut Up and Play Your Guitar in order to get it, and I'm glad that I didn't get it back then versus getting it now, because now, you know, like, they've taken the time to master everything, because the family owns the rights to everything, so the family's taken the dweezil in a lot of cases. Took the time to remaster everything for digital and made it sound right, made sure everything sounded great, you know, stuff like that. So I'm glad I waited to pick this up until, you know, like, we got the better mastering and stuff like that. But Pink Napkins, getting into the actual song itself, I'm not sure if Pink Napkins is supposed to be a crude innuendo or not for ladies' sanitary napkins, you know, pads. It's a possibility. It's Frank. But this tune itself is just wonderful. The way that they play on it, and once again, there's kind of like a core theme or a central theme, and then, you know, there's this monstrous exploration off of it that just kind of goes and it moves, and it's a vibe and it's a feel, and it's fantastic, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And it's one of, out of this whole entire collection, is definitely one of the ones I enjoy listening to the most, because of how unique and different it is, even within this own mix, you know. Like, there's similarities between, you know, certain tracks, like Treacherous Cretins on Shut Up and Play Your Guitar is definitely very similar to the Deathless Horsey on Shut Up and Play Your Guitar Some More, but they are still very two distinct and separate songs. They just have similar kind of feels and methodologies of playing it, if you like. You know, there's certain vibes you can feel in there, and certain, you know, explorations that definitely seem similar or the same. One thing I did not mention in the first review that I'm going to mention here is a lot of these tracks, I mean, basically all these tracks were recorded live during the shows, and they were usually to go in between songs where there were lyrics or whatnot, or to give pauses in between sections of performances. They weren't meant, you know, like, when they were originally recorded, they weren't meant to be recorded entirely for a release like this, you know. That wasn't the intention. It's not like Frank went, hey, let's go make a guitar album. That's not what happened. Frank went out there and took all these parts out of performances that hadn't been released and then put them together on here. For example, when would this have been? This would have been originally done in, I want to say, early 80s. Yeah, 81. It says on here. Originally, these albums were, all three were originally released in 81. So if you were to look at an album like Shake Your Booty, Shake Your Booty is basically all one live concept recorded in a giant run. Throughout that, there's a couple points where there's a few instrumental breaks in it. Those instrumental breaks were kept in as it was part of the show and the performance, or the way that Frank felt the show and the performance worked and flowed throughout everything. Now, there's a lot of times where Frank has done that, but due to album length or, it just didn't sound right in there or whatnot, Frank put them aside. A lot of times, Frank would also play with those guitar solos and then re-record other music over top of it later on. Sometimes it was just the solo that was recorded live, and then, Frank would have everybody come in and do their thing, and he would have other parts performed over top of it, or, he'd go with it himself. He started doing that a lot more, especially later on when he got out of doing guitar and he started working a lot more with synthesizers and that, where he was doing that himself. But yeah, so there's a good rundown for you on Shut Up and Play Your Guitar Some More. I hope you enjoyed it, and please come back for our next episode, which is going to be Return of Shut Up and Play Your Guitar, in which we are going to finish off the rest of Disc 2, or the entirety of one album. This is, I love and hate this 3 albums on 2 CDs at the same time. But anyways, until next time, you know the routine. Peace, love, take care. Subscribe, comment. Most of all, just respect each other, guys. Love each other. Okay, so all the moving you're seeing in this video, where you keep seeing, this is what's going on. My little cat here. Yeah, that's right. Come on, say hi to everybody. Come on, you say hi to everybody. Yeah. My little cat here. She's being a little bit of an attention whore right now, and this is why he keeps wobbling. She keeps hitting my camera stand and, or my foot or whatever. Sorry. So you'll see this at the end of the video, most likely.